Here we are yet again. It is May 26th. It is the 26th day of our marathon to increase and get the word out for the Sage Circle Alliance. My name is Meryl Fury. I am a registered nurse and co-founder of Sage Circle Alliance, and I am here today with none other than Mr. Paul Chatlin, who happens to be literally my other half. He's like the other half of this picture. He's the other half of the Sage Circle Alliance. So we are here today and we'll be chatting it up. How are you today, Paul?
I am doing good today. I am doing good. Had a good night's sleep, drank my water, did my exercise, and here we are. And I get to be with my BFF in the Sage Circle Alliance. And let me just tell people that, my beautiful wife has this theory. Her theory is that men and women can't really be best friends. Like it doesn't work. And so I basically don't have a lot of girlfriends. Like I'm married, I shouldn't have any. I got my wife. That's all I need. A couple sister-in-laws, great people. And then I met Meryl Fury, and she is the first lady that my wife has approved to be my new best friend.
And I am so honored too. I am so glad.
I'm so happy, really. It's like,
Honestly.
it is fun, Meryl. I mean, we've had tears together. We've laughed way more than the tears. And I think the thing that's kind of funny is to us is that we both recognize the Sage Circle Alliance is so needed. And yet it's a longer play, like it'd be wonderful if I woke up and tomorrow we added another 50 charter members and they were all corporate joined members. And overnight we had money that we could actually do some real fun things with. But it's not the way it is right now. It can be, by the way, if 50 people are watching. Come on, be a corporation, join us. But Marilyn, I've said this and I'll say it publicly. Like, no matter what happens, I walk away with a best friend for life. I feel so lucky. Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk?
We wouldn't have thunk. That's for sure. I agree. And we can say in the alliance, there are 40-something other people who are similar, maybe not. Okay, so Paul and I get to talk multiple times a day. Yes, every day and multiple times, usually at 7 a.m. for me anyway. So we have a particular relationship, right, which is great. But there are other people in the alliance that are equally generous and kind and invested and passionate and knowledgeable, brilliant, active. There are too many adjectives to describe the people, deeply committed to making a difference for human health, animal compassion, and the planet. It's a great group of people, and that is highly motivating all by itself. Today we were expecting, I'm not even going to say who, we were expecting somebody else to be on this call with us, and that person may or may not show up yet. But in the meantime, Paul and I are going to have one of our great conversations. We're going to give you a peek behind the scenes. This is the kind of stuff Paul and I talk about periodically so that you can just see what happens. I'm going to say, in the room where it happens, as they say in Hamilton, right? So here's my question for you, Paul, today. So the Sage Circle Alliance is about kind of where we started is with human health, right? And advocating for entrepreneurs who want to make a difference with human health. Can you tell people why we started with that aspect of whole food, plant-based lifestyle?
I think it was because we're safe there. This is where the majority of our contacts, based on our experiences over the past long period of time, this is our connections. It's interesting that when you look at the almost 50 members that we have in less than 30 days, so we're on to something great. But you look at a great majority of them come from the human health side because of our relationships with these people, our discussions, the trust that they have in us, the trust that we have in them. But both Meryl and I always knew that it just had to be bigger. I'm a plant-based person. I always have been for 12 years. But for 12 years, I've wanted to find a way to expand it into animal compassion. And, I'd say that because, I get tired of seeing this thing, but I never get tired of it. So I don't care what you think.
Aww.
I have been an animal lover my whole life. And I so dear, as the founder of Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group, I always wanted to incorporate that. And then, gosh, I'm a grandpa. I know you guys can't believe it. Gray hair. Yeah, you can believe it. I'm a grandpa. And I asked myself, like, okay, my kids are now like in their mid to late 30s and 40. And, I could visualize 20 years from now, I could, but I've got my little Noah who's two years old. And I think, what's life going to be like at 50 years from now? And I just can't visualize it. So if I can't, then the Sage Circle Alliance was expanded into animal compassion and planetary awareness because of our grandkids, because we can't visualize what it's like, but we know that we could do something together as a big family of people, and we can make a difference potentially. It's going to take time, but trust this fact, everybody. It's never going to be for lack of effort and honesty.
Right.
So I think that we decided to go into, and on the health side was because we're familiar with it. We're very familiar with it, but we do have now, founding and charter members that are both animal advocates and people who care about the planet. So that's the challenge that Meryl and I and the group has, is that we're going to expand our horizons.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were saying, we're talking about kids and looking forward, there's that saying that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. And the next best time to plant a tree is right now. So that's what we are doing, is planting this tree called Sage Circle Alliance. We're planting it right now, and have been. Actually, we started working on it a year ago, just to build the infrastructure and get there's lots of moving pieces to an organization like this. And we find more moving pieces every several days, or, once a week or so, we find more. But it's about creating something that will carry us into the future for generations. We know that if we don't do something for the planet, so here's the thing, right? There are certainly people who deny that climate change is happening. Certainly. I know some of those people, right? And I care about some of those people. I'm not going to say that I don't ostracize or, wall myself off for them. So people can deny that the climate is changing. Maybe it's a normal cycle we're in. Maybe this is just part of it, but you cannot deny the amount of plastics in the ocean. You cannot deny the amount of just garbage blowing in the streets. You can't deny the incredible increase in landfill size, right? That stuff is really happening. We can't deny that other animal species are being impacted. We can't deny the loss of habitat, the impact on the ecosystem. We can't deny the number of species that are going extinct and the rate. That stuff is not deniable. So I really look at it like what we're doing is sort of like drawing a line in the sand. We have to do something, and this is one thing, the beginning of one thing that we can do.
Yeah, I have two follow-up thoughts. One is that everything is like, you need this because this group of animals feed on these, and then it keeps snowballing. You need to have soil so we could plant things to grow things. We grow things so we could eat those things that we grow. We need to have and then Silesh Rouse, was it?
Rao. Mhm.
Rao, he, in his podcast with the Sage Circle Alliance, he said that there used to be 7 trillion trees on this earth,
Hmm.
and now there's 3. And like when he said that, I'm like, well, what's the effect? Like there's got to be. So if there's so many less trees and there's so many plastics in the ocean and there's so much garbage, landfills, etc. Like I don't think that the earth was ready for all this, So that is something that concerns me. But another area that Meryl and I so agree on is, I'm not expecting, when I started this little journey 12 years ago, I wanted to make a world of difference. Well, my world of difference and Meryl's world of difference is going to be us just building a foundation, because that world of difference we might not see, we probably won't see. But I look at it and I couldn't ask for a better person to help build a foundation than Meryl and the group that's really currently at the Sage Circle Alliance. These are people that I consider family. These are honest, hardworking people. And they're good people and they're compassionate. And these are the people that you'd want to be around.
Right. Yeah. So true. All right. So question for you, Paul, or do you want to ask me a question? I could.
Well, let's start with, I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
So, can I go off script with a general?
Yes, go off script. Okay, not too far off script.
All right. So, Meryl, I want to know, like you are keenly aware of the issues that are confronted the underserved children on this planet. And you've helped educate me. Like I knew about it, but I didn't know to the depth. I didn't understand that multiple generations before a child's born, how that woman takes care of her body affects not just the next generation, but the one after.
Yeah.
And you are right there, right in the middle of all this, because you're going to underserved areas and explaining and teaching them nutrition. So when that hour is up, they go home to their reality, and it's far from what you just said. So that all being said, what is your hope that the kids will take away when you get a chance to spend time with them?
That is I've never thought about it that way. So that's a really good question. So a couple things. And this is going to be a rather lengthy answer. I hope that's okay with you. One thing that we've noticed is that schools are hard to get into, right? And rightfully so. No one should be able to just waltz into a school and start presenting or speaking with children, right? That would just be kind of crazy. So it started out where we were going into like summer camps and boys and girls clubs where they're inviting community participation. And that was great. What we found was that the children that we were in had the most easy access, where we had the easiest access. Those children tended to struggle with food challenges, right? Not knowing where their next meal was coming from, nutritional insecurity. The food they were getting was not even nutritious. It was just filling their belly with empty calories, a lot of it, sugars and refined flours and things like that. So one of the things we hope to do is expose them, give them a chance to eat food that is highly nutritious, highly, has lots of good fiber in it, lots of vitamins and minerals, and it's probably something they never had before. Then from there, as long as we can make it something that they like, which is a little challenging sometimes, they don't like everything, all the kids have their preferences. And when they've been exposed to the hyperpalatable foods, it can be hard for them to accept just plain watermelon or just plain blueberries. Oh, we have a guest. So what I hope to do with them is to expose them to something they've never had before and encourage them to try it at home with their families. That's what I hope they'll take away. On that, we are going to bring our guest in. We have Dr. Joel Kahn just showed up, and you are on camera.
Good day. Hello. Welcome. How are you? Sorry I'm late, but that's what happens.
You're right on time.
Busy people doing busy things. Like
that's all right. We understand that. We live that life too. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Chatelain, sir.
We've got a, Meryl, Joel and I have a 12-year streak of never saying no to each other and never letting each other down. And it is intact. The streak continues. Thank you.
Good job.
No problem. I told my family, get the heck out of here. I got something bigger to do.
That
time
could be
time to get rid of them anyways.
I was going to say that sounds just a little tongue in cheek. I don't know.
Hey, I've been excited about having you on this. I've got some questions I want to ask of you that I may have never asked before.
Okay.
Well, maybe you should introduce him first and say who he is and how you know him.
Oh, you can if you want, but I'm going to have answers I've never given before. I'm creating them right now.
Okay. Why don't we start with, how about you kind of explain to people our connection, who you are. Everyone knows who Dr. Joel, the America's cardiologist, that's what it is. But why don't you explain the best you can of how you want people to know who you are?
Sure. I'm a quintuple board certified cardiologist, 5 times over, university professor, very busy clinician, author, podcaster, TV show guest, but mainly I take care of patients. And I've been plant-based in my personal life, meaning completely vegan, since age 18. So that's 47 years of never touching an animal food. And that's the honest truth. That's a joyful thing. I found out later in medical school that there was an application of that to my patients. I didn't start it for that reason, but in medical school, when you start learning about, mainly outside of medical school, you start learning about Mr. Pritikin and Dr. Ornish and later Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Furman. You say, heck, my home diet is a therapeutic diet. So anyways, that's part of the program. And 10 years ago, I said goodbye to hospitals and sick care and opened a clinic in southeastern Michigan for wellness care, cardiology wellness care. And it's been a fantastic thing, the Kahn Center for Cardiac Longevity. And Paul and I met in early 2014, so a decade ago, when he was looking for a plant-friendly, plant-knowledgeable, supported cardiologist to start a group. And that led to now a very large, wonderful, and impactful group, and now the Sage Circle Alliance. So yeah, a lot of history, a lot of good stuff. And I'm still vegan, and I hope to be 98 and say, how many years would that be? 80 years of being vegan, whole food, plant-based, any way you want to spin it. But all good.
Okay, well, let me give you a little history and then a follow-up question, which is, so when I started the plant-based nutrition support group, I had a couple meetings at my house, and it was shocking how many people signed up so quickly. And I knew I needed to take it to a bigger venue. I also knew that while I had some answers, they were asking me medical questions about heart disease. and I knew I just wasn't not only prepared, but I just didn't want to answer it because I wasn't a doctor. So I called the three chief cardiologists at the three major hospitals here in Michigan. And I said, give me the names of three cardiac lifestyle doctors you'd recommend. And they gave me three. Each one of them gave me three. The only person that was repeated, and it was repeated with each one of them, was Dr. Joel Kahn. Now, people are kind of shocked because when Joel and I are together, we're like a couple of little brothers here, you know, and, but I never knew who he was. I had never met him, but I thought, okay, if this guy is being repeated 3 times, I'm going to call and talk to him first. So there it was. I gave you a cold call, and he says, hey, I like your idea. Come on over to the house immediately. And I remember this, Joel, like it was yesterday. It was like he welcomed me. We sat down. He was showing me the books. I met his beautiful wife, and we talked for hours. And I left the house and I said, guess what? I'm not going to have to make any more calls. He's my guy.
Right.
So my question to you is, I chose you, but what was your impression when you met me for the first time? Because everyone's got an impression of meeting me.
Yeah. Well, number one, I still have you on my phone as Paul Challen Super Vegan. That's what I put in that first time you called me, so I kept it that way, and I think it's appropriate. Number two, I had just launched my own clinic and had relatively rarely coached people to follow an Esselstyn Ornish program and say no to the recommended bypass and say no to the recommended stent, which takes a lot of backbone for a doctor. It takes a lot of backbone for a patient. It takes a lot of backbone for the family. It's always, contested by the standard medical world. And, I had obviously been aware of all that research, but I was a cath lab guy. I was a stent guy. Some of my best friends were cardiac surgeons that were doing bypass. Not that I didn't know there was all this other data, but in the role I had, it was just expected that I would send people with bad blockage to bypass. And I really didn't have that much personal experience. So here you were, a living, breathing example of what I had been studying for decades and certainly knew was a real deal. Somewhere around then, I had gone to Cleveland and spent a Friday morning for the 5-6 hour Dr. Esselstyn immersion with patients as a guest of his and Ann. So, I knew there was a reality to it. So, all those things, hero Paul, warrior Paul, amazing story Paul, and super vegan Paul. And, reasonably nice guy. We're still evaluating that. I don't want to get too mushy here.
I appreciate that. And what's interesting is that each step along the way, every single time we had some opportunity of some kind, Dr. Joel Kahn was the first person I would go to, and he would be with me along the way. And we've had a lot of opportunities. We've had some successes. We've had some interesting times. And, again, if anything happens to anybody I know on the heart world, I go to Joel Kahn. So just to let you know that.
I have a career and I have a hobby and I have some passions, but they're always the same thing. It's just optimal medical care, best science in the world, most natural treatment when it's appropriate. So
let me ask you this, and it's really, I got two more. Merrill, I appreciate your patience with this, but this is a rare opportunity that I get with Joel. We don't, it's.
I know we live far away.
Yeah, well. So my question then, my follow-up is, do you think from the time I've known you and the experience you even had prior to getting to know me, do you think we're where we should be as a world? I mean, is it, where do you think we are?
Yeah, we'll just limit it to nutrition world, because if we go off that, we'll quickly devolve into 1,000 disappointments going on. But no, if you talk 5-10 years ago, just in our suburban area of Detroit, we had, I think, more plant-based options than we have now. Isn't that crazy? And I think you're seeing that in other cities too, LA, New York. there's options. Our peak in Detroit was probably the mid to late part of the last decade, and I was involved in that, having 2 plant-based restaurants open that were draining my energy and my bank account, but they were passions for sure. So no, I don't think we are near we should be, which is odd because we have more science. I mean, the science we had 10 years ago hasn't been disproven. We have 1,000 more papers by Dr. Neil Barnard and people I've never heard of. That's this week a gigantic review that made headlines all over, that we can reduce heart disease deaths, overall deaths with vegetarian and vegan diets. You're not going to get the randomized studies. We have more science. That's all I want to say. I could keep going. And they're not necessarily evil people, but the keto, the paleo, the carnivore movement doesn't have new science, doesn't have anything to show that was not present 10 years ago. It's the same anecdotal case history stuff. Rah, 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 big guys lifting weights, eating beef. But it's sexier. It's makes headlines more. And, we know the media, and this is my one maybe political comment, we know the media is not to be trusted. And they somehow favor these carnivore paleo stories. And maybe it's the way advertising money goes. There's just more coming from Tyson and Cargill and the rest than there is from the broccoli growers. But no, we are not where we should be. We should have, as you've worked so hard with both the plant-based nutrition support group and now SAGE, we should have a unified, loud, noisy, high energy, high vibe, cool organization that, teens and young adults and middle-aged people and the media, and they all identify this as, a win-win-win. People, plants, animals and plants, and the environment and plants. It should be clear as day.
It's interesting because the other day when I woke up in the morning, the first 3 commercials I saw were Twizzler licorice, a fast food one, and pills. And then it was repeated off and on during the whole day. And it allows me to create something to write about. But it's funny how if the people in the vegan world, which would include the humans, the animal lovers, and the people about the planet, if they don't all work together, nothing's going to happen. Like, we got to become a one voice, So let me ask you this: wait,
let me ask you can I just ask
please.
one question about what Joel said just a minute ago?
Yeah.
So you were talking about there was a big study that came out with more information about the benefits of whole food, plant-based, healthy vegan diet. That was what you were saying, right?
Yeah, I think it was 2.7 million people, by combining studies. I mean, again, Dr. Ornish had 48 patients. Now we got, brand new literature that's almost 3 million people. I mean, when are we going to be satisfied that a plate full of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes is probably a pretty good recommendation at every age and every stage of life?
Right. So my question is, have you seen any studies that show that keto, paleo, carnivore, all that is actually detrimental?
Yeah, just not many. Again, I write a couple newsletters for physicians, and it's a literature review. So I have to stay up what's new this week to put a new newsletter out. It's a fun little, thing to be able to quote the literature. But there were 2 in the last 2 weeks. One was sometimes your animal studies. An animal study, I have it right here in a journal called Science Advances, that they actually were able to identify that the ketogenic diet activated aging pathways that support cancer production. Can you be quiet, please? Something called tumor protein 53. So there's a negative one, but nobody reads it. I read it. And then there was another one in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if I'll be able to quote, name, and journal. I'll find it in a minute. But about the ketogenic diet and severe cholesterol abnormalities that result. And these are not being written by vegan researchers. These are just researchers, nutrition researchers. warning, warning. I mean, here we go. I actually did find it. Yeah, the significant impact of a high-fat, low-carb, ketogenic diet on the serum cholesterol profile and risk factor profile in overweight and obese adults. April 9, 2024. There you go.
Right.
This study had a notable observation of severe cholesterol rises and a severe increased risk of heart disease amongst ketogenic diet participants. So that wouldn't be called good press.
That would not.
Yeah, and that's just 2 in the last 2 weeks.
No.
They
Okay,
they sort of come out slow. I mean, the other one that came out in the last month was a really interesting research study from another part of the world, but that the paleo diet of 100,000 years ago, their analysis using like carbon-14 advanced technology was largely plant-based.
Yes.
Well, that's not good for the paleo people that are saying, it's not, and it made headlines all over, cavemen were vegan. I mean, there were headlines like that. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so 2 things. I want to be on your mailing list for your newsletter. That would be amazing.
Okay.
And I read a study similar to what you're talking about, and it was looking at, I think I've mentioned this on here before, like the petrified excrement of cave people, paleo era people, and how they had something like 225 grams of fiber in this petrified human excrement, which is, I don't know, 150 times what we eat now or something. I don't know. Crazy.
I think we should offer listeners to make a donation to the Sage Circle. We'll give you your own paperweight with petrified excrement in the middle to remind you of that.
I think that's brilliant. Or celery, whichever they prefer.
Just so we don't lose track. And this is not really meant to be promotional. My clinic is full. I don't want more patients. But if you go to drjoelkahn.com, drjoelkahn.com, and at the bottom of the website, there's a place to sign up for the newsletter. And
Great.
the one I send out to doctors, don't tell anybody this, is a same version I send out to public, just with slightly different language. But the articles are original research articles.
We're going to tell everybody how to reach out to you one way or the other. So, no worries there. Here's a question for you. You wake up every morning. What challenges you?
My low back, like half the world's population, but I stretch it out and feel great. Like you, Paul, who I know your schedule well. I keep myself busy. I just turned 65 last weekend. A lot of my peers have retired, slowed down, and I have not. If you look at my schedule now versus 5 years ago, I think I have more responsibility, and I think the same is true of you, Paul. So sometimes the challenge is just, not missing an interview with Paul and Meryl like I almost did, because the schedule has so many pockets, even on a holiday weekend, that I fill up. Just getting it all done and have some work-life balance. You have to have some work-life balance. So that's a bit of a challenge. I think I do reasonably well, but not perfect. Really beyond that, I love what I do, even though the hours are far from short, but so I don't call it a challenge to meet amazing people.
I appreciate that.
And, I'll tell you, I actually very rarely I lost a patient this week. And it was a patient I was coaching on the Esselstyn program. And I actually had him in Pritikin cardiac rehab, which is like, between what I was giving him, what the Pritikin intensive cardiac rehab program was giving him. He was fully engaged. And he went to an emergency room with some heart rhythm problem, which was new. And I don't have all the details. I think they blew him off, discharged him home, and he died 2 hours later. That destroys me because I went back. We did it right. I mean, he was doing it right, full Esselstyn. He was in rehab, and everything was going great in rehab. And then he shows up in a medical system that, is still got so many deficiencies in it. Now, what I just shared with you is so rare. I've been practicing medicine for 35 years and, all plant-based for quite a while now. And at any rate, it just tears me up that not only do we have a plant-based movement that's wonderful, vibrant, and important, but not where it should be, but our medical system is certainly not where it should be.
Could not agree more. I want to let people know this. The three of us are pure animal lovers. So, like, Joel and I, I had a dog. Meryl has one. Joel has how many now?
Well, if we let this one that was barking stay alive, we'll have 3.
Yeah.
Still debating. He's still debating about her.
And he takes his dogs to Florida. He takes his dogs on trips. In other words, Joel is an animal lover. And being that he's a grandpa, like we're all grandparents, he also cares about this planet. So I guess I have one more question after this, and then I'm done with you on my questions. But like, I know that the Sage Circle Alliance touched a bunch of checked some boxes for you. Of course, it's human health. But the fact is, you and I had talked for years about expanding PBNSG into animals and into the environment, but we stayed in our lane of health. So now, finally, you're part as a founding member. You're part of this opportunity to expand it into the compassion of animals and the awareness of the planet. Is that the motivating factors for you to join? Because everyone wants you, on their team.
Yeah, absolutely, that's true. All that you said is true.
Okay.
I admire so much a researcher named Walter Longo, PhD, University of Southern California. He's not your standard, vegan doctor speaker at a conference. He's on a much bigger worldwide venue. But, I got attracted to him 10 years ago because he kept talking about plant-based. Now, his diet includes fish twice a week. Mine does not. But I've thought about it at times. At this point, after so many years, even if the data was compelling that eating fish 2 times a week added significantly to your health, which I don't agree with. I respect him, but I do not agree with. I think you can do it 100% plant-based and have fantastic health. Okay, maybe you got to eat a bit more ground flaxseed than the average person, but that's not exactly a hardship. The idea of putting my fork and my knife into the flesh of an animal at this point, from a fish to a chicken to a whatever, is so repulsive to me. I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I tell Meryl this all the time. It's like dogs and cat. They won the world's lottery, for animals.
Right.
Because every time I pet something other than a dog and cat, they're all happy to be pet. So it's too much. Okay, last questions for me. I have a magic wand, and I'm granting you one wish, and I'm also granting you something that is on the flip side of that wish, something that frustrates you. What would be your wish? What would be your frustration?
If I had to have one wish, I have 2, but I'll keep one.
I'll give you 2.
I'll tell you both.
I'll give you 2. You could have 2.
My one wish would, my 2 wishes would be, number one, everybody at age 45 to 50 would get a heart calcium CT scan. It costs about $75. Maybe we could get somebody to fund it. I'm talking to everybody. And we would immediately have 2 groups of people in America or wherever we do this. We'd have people on their way to heart disease and people not on their way to heart disease right now. And we've been doing a much better job of preventing this awful burden of, 3,000 people a day dying of heart disease every day. Numbers aren't getting better. So that's number one. And we've had the technology. We got 6,000 research studies. It's inexpensive. It's safe. We have such a lack of compassion in the medical world that we failed to incorporate this simple heart calcium CT scan. It's available at every hospital. You just got to ask your primary care doctor for a prescription. Expect to pay, except in Texas, insurance companies don't pay for it. They only pay for expensive, ineffective, stuff, and all. And number 2 would be to shut down every fast food restaurant in America. And maybe we could actually bring in a attractive whole food plant-based alternative, because we're killing kids and their parents and their grandparents with fast food. Yeah. And there's a lot of other struggles, but just shut them down. I understand profit. We're in a free enterprise society. We'll have to, compensate the McDonald's Corporation for their loss of income, but they're killing people. So those would be the two. And then the second question was, what's my biggest frustration?
Yeah.
Yeah, the lack of explosive growth, that the science has exploded, but the interest has grown. And I wish we could get them together.
Fair enough. I appreciate it. Meryl, you have some questions for Dr.
Not so much questions, couple of thoughts. That calcium scan
Yeah.
that you were talking about in 2019, I saw a movie called The Widowmaker.
Yeah, that movie is mandatory. It's not forks over knives. It's more technical, but
yeah, but very powerful movie.
Very powerful movie, and the real deal. I mean, that's already probably 10 years old. They don't need to make another one. It's just
no, really good. And it was after that. So my husband, I'm here in Wisconsin. He was born and raised in Racine, which is meat and cheese head capital.
I was gonna say cheese country.
Yes, we are what we say behind the cheddar curtain. That's how we call that. Right? So he grew up eating that way. One of his big childhood memories is a no-bake Jello cheesecake that his mother made for him, and that is a fond memory, right? So he has all these food associations, and none of them are with healthy food. Very, very few anyway. Got to be 2020, COVID hit, and I was bugging him to go get this calcium scan that you're talking about, right? He pushed back, lots of arguments. So we nearly came to like serious not speaking. We already decided we're never getting a divorce, so it wasn't that bad. But we weren't talking for a while, and we had some pretty heated debates over how I was being controlling of his life, asking him to go get this calcium scan done. Fast forward to where the hospitals open up for voluntary procedures again, and he goes and gets the calcium scan done. Come to find out, he's got moderate to severe risk of coronary artery disease, as shown on that scan. We have a plant-based cardiologist here in town. His name is Kevin Fullen. Maybe you know him, maybe you don't. But he recommended that my husband go whole food plant-based, which, didn't work really well for the first 2 years. Anyway, 2 years later, because he was playing around and doing the junk food vegan version of the whole food plant-based diet, he wound up having a heart attack. Yeah. That I fully concur. And when people say their husbands or their spouse, their loved one, their mother, their father, whoever it is, won't eat more vegetables, argues, pushes back, wants to eat burgers every night, I tell them, just, tell them to go get the calcium scan done. Just go get it done. It's easy. And you don't even have to have your doctor order it.
Right. Well, I always wonder, and this is, I'm going to piss some people off because nobody's ever done the study, is go to the hospital and talk to people that are lying there recovering from a large heart attack or the day after bypass. And ask them, if you knew 5 to 10 years ago that you were developing disease that wasn't yet evident, and you knew that there was this large database that said you might be able to halt it, even reverse it, would you want to know that? Would you make changes? Nobody's ever done that study. And the other survey I do, this is where I'll offend people, the day a guy has his last erection, and it never happens again, and you talk to that guy and said, there's a scan that predicts vascular disease, and it's $75, like the Widowmaker movie. And you could have had it 5 to 10 years ago and made some changes, and you would still be in the game, guy. And gals get attention too, but it's just easier to measure this whole thing. And guys, would you have wanted to know if you had heart disease? Would you have made some changes? Because you're done. You're in the ice age for the rest of your life. Because I talk to patients all the time, and they're just, they're beat down by their body's inability to respond anymore. How many people there clearly were people that are going to say, nope, cheeseburgers and fries and
pizzas,
pepperoni pizza for me, and I'll play the cards I'm dealt. But That's the message that has to get out. Gotta, and I was thinking about the second one that I talked about. That last day that it works and then it doesn't work anymore. Would you have turned the clock back and joined Sage Circle and learned some stuff? Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Got to spice it up a little here for the people listening and watching.
Gotta. I mean, that's the real deal.
Yeah, I think there just was a CNN special on Sunday a week ago with Sanjay Gupta. They interviewed Dean Ornish. I think it was called The Last Case of Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And it did highlight that Dean Ornish is doing a randomized study of his program versus control. And there are already a couple people indicating they're seeing benefits to their cognitive function with whole food plant-based diets plus the rest of the Ornish lifestyle. And, and I'd like to do and I know people are going to say you're so weird, but it's just, I've talked to people about this for so long, the last erectile dysfunction case, because we could end it. We just got to screen people, because if anybody doesn't know, heart disease, erectile dysfunction, other blood vessels through the body, they're all the same. They're all getting attacked by a disease that, as Dr. Esselstyn calls it, could be a paper tiger. We diagnosed it earlier with the calcium scan and closed the fast food restaurants and taught whole food plant-based nutrition. Bada boom.
Yeah. Meryl, what else you got? Because I could come up with some stuff with Dr.
All right. Well, I have one more. Okay. And then you come up with some stuff.
Okay.
All right. So you're talking about, and Paul, just hang on. I got to bring up children.
What are you bringing up?
Children. I mean, aside from the fact that I actually have raised a few, I got to bring up the question of.
Right.
Right. So if we could, in your, let's go back to your magic wand. If we could do anything to prevent the onset of these chronic illnesses that are hitting our children at younger and younger ages, what do you think would be like the first step? What's the first thing that you would suggest that we could do for children?
Yeah, you got to start so early, and it's going to have to involve the parents, because really early. I mean, by preschool and kindergarten and elementary school, like we do have a few examples in New York City now, at least the word nutrition and vegan comes up, like a couple, private schools in Los Angeles and all, blanking on the name, but there's a big one that's funded by Camerons, now that I think about it. But you got to start that early. There is data that by 18 years old, we're starting to develop atherosclerosis, 15, 18, 21, 23. So it's perfectly fine to start at that age, but we've already lost a little bit of the advantage. So I would, we got to have Disney on board and, Nickelodeon on board and books and music on board. I mean, again, these are, it would take a nationwide focus and perspective, when we seem, not to be able to do anything as a nation that's unified and progressive. We've had a war on cancer since Richard Nixon, and I don't think we've really made that much of an inroad. So that's what we need, though. Early childhood intervention with nutritional lifestyle. It's very effective.
Yeah. Okay, one more follow-up question. Just because you read a lot and you're in the literature a lot. Okay, so I have actually been looking for graphs or data on the changes in prevalence of these diagnoses in children over, let's say, the last 20 years. And I'm looking for things like...
Well, again, the one that's in the news this week, two are in the news this week. Strokes earlier and earlier in people under 40. That's not quite children, but children. It does include, but that's in the news this week if you look it up. Distressing. I think 15% higher than the previous decade. Mm-hmm. And the other one that's in the news all over is colorectal cancer under age 40. And sometimes, unbelievably, under age 20 as a rising, more than concern. I mean, it's actually been called a dramatic jump in some young people. So, and those are both diet related, stroke and colorectal cancer. I mean, There's less smoking than there used to be. Air quality, air pollution's a factor. It's not so good, but it's just crap food. So, I don't. There's some data that younger people are having heart attacks. I don't know that I'd call it a dramatic rise yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Paul. Yeah.
So Joel was at every plant-based nutrition support group live meeting, and over the 10 years that we were doing it live together, we got to meet everybody who everybody knows. So we've had literally every.
They got to meet Paul Chatlin, is what I would say. But yeah.
Thank you. That's why he's my forever brother.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say that, by the way. I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Happy birthday, and I'm proud of you.
Thank
you. So we've met all these people, and yet they all do their own thing. They all do their own thing, and yet you and I've talked at length about what would happen if we woke up and they all woke up one day. Because let's face it, all these people are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Like they're getting older. We're all getting older with them. But those people that so many people look up to, they're getting older. So would you not think that, like, as much as they're doing well in their own personal practice, that they would like to have a legacy, not just of giving their generations the money that they've earned, which they have every right to do, but where they feel the way Meryl and I feel, and you feel, Joel, where we just want to make a difference, knowing we're never going to see the promised land. Rather, we're just going to build a foundation. Why can't they? What's holding, you think, them back from being foundation builders like we are?
I think you're right. I mean, there is, again, there are times that we get together at PBNSG, at Scott Stoll's organization, the lifestyle medicine conferences, which aren't exclusively plant-based, but heavily plant-based, academic meetings like that. But you're right. It's just turf. It's just turf wars. And unfortunately, there actually are some, differences that have divided people and caused them to separate. I've been to.
Aren't they like small differences? Like I've met them, and if you said, you guys, everyone agrees to like 95, 92, 98% of everything.
Right.
But that little difference means the world to them. And it's like, get over it. Who cares? Let's spend time on what we all agree on.
I agree. And I don't know that I'm the only, but I might be the only plant-based doc that's been to a fair number of the paleo. I've never been to a keto, but there's a huge conference called Paleo FX. And I've actually been on a panel there, even though I was clearly the odd man out. I actually had a fun time. They have differences, but they somehow, have fun. It's pretty obvious they're having fun and stay unified. And because one guy puts eggs on his steak and one guy eats just steak and one gal puts cheese with her steak. I mean, they don't yell at each other, but and I'll say it, if Dr. Furman says something about, omega-3 deficiencies are important and we should consider supplementing or drawing blood work, people literally ostracize them. And so I don't know. I've been vocal about this a few years back and got beat up a bit over it and all. But there are just a few, people that claim they're the online police of the plant-based community. And I think they've been a great detriment, not a great advantage. Let's let people have some room for their differences, but let's make sure we don't weaken the whole movement by this divisiveness.
And I'm going to make this clear right now, that anybody who's got an opinion, who has a following, who's join us. There is no judgment. We're not going to ostracize anybody if there has a little bit different of opinion from Meryl, what Meryl thinks, what you think, Joe, what I think, what other. No, we stay in the positive. We stay in the hope. That's what we do. We stay in that area. The differences, park it before you come in, because we have to make a difference.
Right.
And we have to have a voice. Right now, we are but a whisper. So we need to work together to create a voice. So I'm with you on that, Joel. I really am.
Thank you. Yeah.
Meryl, anything else?
Um, just calling attention to that we are just about at the top of the hour. So it's time to say our website is crawling across the bottom of the screen. That's sagecirclealliance.org. Please go there and check us out. If you are, any of this piques your interest, checks any boxes for you, there are buttons on that homepage that say become a member, join us, join now, whatever they say. There's several buttons. Click one of those. They will take you to a section of the website that will tell you all about the different membership levels. You choose the one that fits you like a nice shirt that feels good, feels comfortable. You can choose to be a volunteer, a student, a single entrepreneur, a small business, all the way up to enterprise level. If you're interested in making a difference for human health, for the movement, for animal compassion, for the planet to regenerate, if that's where your heart is, that's where we are. And you are invited to join us.
Yep. And check out our calendar. Every day, our founding and charter members are adding their events, their activities onto the calendar. Joel, who does the IT at Con, at your company? Do you do it or somebody else?
Sometimes it doesn't work well, and we call it the SHIT.
Okay.
But I do my social media. I put stuff on my website. I do have an assistant that helps with my website.
All right.
And I have a weekly podcast. So I have a really tiny team, but to say that they aren't excellent at all now, to give credit where credit's due,
Well,
I do. But largely, I'm a tiny and hopefully energetic one-man show, which is a blessing and a curse. Yeah.
Yep. And I appreciate that you could take your podcast that you do regularly. You could add that onto the SCA calendar, and that way other people will see your greatness and your sense of humor that goes with that greatness. And also on the social media, anytime you want to like the Sage Circle Alliance, we're going to like you and love you back. So I appreciate that. And from my end, I'm going to just say it like,
So we haven't missed.
wait, are you there? Okay. Well, I don't know if you're listening.
You froze. Can you hear us, Paul?
I can hear. I can hear you.
Okay, good.
I can't hear Joel, but we're wrapped up. So I'm going to just say this. I love you. And thank you for always being there. Very few people, I could say that. You've always been there for me. So thank you. And thanks for joining us and being a member. Meryl, you want to put the final touches on it?
Yeah, well, like I said, we are here to make a difference. We're here to amplify the voice. We're here to cause a paradigm shift. It's time to pop the envelope, make a difference with this. So by all means, check us out, Sage Circle Alliance. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Dr. Joel Kahn. Appreciate you being here. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.